Get your booze ready. The Cardinals have made another signing, and I don't think you're going to be all that thrilled about it. Plus, the pros and cons of bringing back Lance Lynn. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinal fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. Follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. Make sure you stop on by, like, subscribe, comment, interact with us. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans of baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. So we got to start with the breaking news of the day. And to get prepared for said breaking news, I've got my bottles. Ooh, I got it turned around. Maker's Mark Private Selection. You might need something like this after what was just announced today by John Mozeliak and this front office. Breaking news. The Cardinals have signed free agent right-handed pitcher Kyle Gibson to a one-year, $12 million deal with an option for next season. He won 15 games with Baltimore last year. He did do that. Let me get you a picture of Gibby up there. There you go. Pitched well against the Cardinals when we saw him. I remember that. Won 15 games with Baltimore last year. They were one of the best teams in the league. So wins, like, they got a lot of them. That's pretty much where the good stuff ends. Had an ERA of 4.73, allowed the most hits in the American League with 198, and opponents hit an AL leading 270 off of him. So let me break this down for you guys. The Cardinals have now, in their rotation, have three guys who were 35 years of age or older, in Michaelis, Lynn, and Gibson, who were three of the most hittable pitchers in the entire league last year. That's what we got going on. Michaelis gave up the most hits. Gibson was fourth, and Lynn was fifth. Michaelis had the second worst batting average against at 282. Gibson was third worst at 270. Lynn was fourth worst at 259. What else do we got? They are three of the top seven worst whips in all of baseball this past year, for starters. Three of the top 8 runs against are now in your rotation. But hey, they're innings eaters. So, can't take that away from them. They eat innings. No matter how many hits and runs they give up, man, they keep throwing that pill in there. I don't know what to tell you. I honestly don't know what to tell you. I understand the goal is to get guys who are reliable and that they want to be out there every fifth day. But don't you want guys who are, like, good out there every fifth day? Isn't that part of the equation? Last year, these guys weren't that good. I can't really put sunshine on this signing. I don't know what to tell you. Sure, he's got some quality starts in there that were good. We expected more this offseason, and we're getting poop is what we're getting. So again, get your booze, and we can toast to what is turning out to be a terrible offseason for the Cardinals. I would love to eat these words later. I really would. But nothing about this is exciting me. It's not going to excite the fan base. This is not going to put butts in the seats. If anything, you're pushing people away with these signings. These are signings that the Pirates used to make, where guys who wanted to latch onto a team for 1 year would go. And now they're becoming priority signings for the Cardinals. That's where you're at. I'm going to have more on this because the Gibson stuff just went down. And I've already got a full podcast prepared for you today. So we'll dig into more of this tomorrow. Some news and notes around the league before we get into more of the Cardinals stuff. Congrats to former Cardinals manager Mike Shildt. Been named the new manager of the San Diego Padres. Takes over for Bob Melvin, who left for San Francisco. Shildt won the Manager of the Year award while with the Cardinals. Had a 252 and 199 record over 4 seasons between 2018 and 2021 in St. Louis before getting abruptly fired following a 90 and 72 season where he was up for the NL Manager of the Year award again. Teams can also begin negotiations with Japanese star Yoshinobu Yamamoto today. The 45-day negotiation window is now open for the 25-year-old right-hander who some say will snag a deal somewhere between 6 and 8 years. 200 to 250 million is what people are projecting. The Cardinals continue to be a team that is linked to him, but so is most of the league. Yankees, Mets, Phillies, Dodgers, Cubs, Red Sox, Giants. The list goes on and on. A lot of people would love to have him. Derek Gould said in his chat recently that Yamamoto is open to considering the Cardinals and St. Louis, so that's a good sign. There are other connections, like that his agent is the agent for Lars Nootbaar and Nolan Arenado. Newt is obviously close friends with them. Cardinals special assistant Matt Slater has a working relationship with Yamamoto's team in Japan, has been improving their ability to scout and build relationships in Japan. All of that is great, but in the end, will the Cardinals offer what is necessary to land him, which is going to be lots and lots of money that they haven't always been willing to give up for free agents in the past? That's the real question. Will they break out of their normal shell to splurge on a guy who would be your ace for the next, 6, 7 years and is right now in his prime at 25? Although the recent signings say if you're not 35 or older, they don't want anything to do with you. This is not the same as giving a 6-year deal to somebody of like an Aaron Nola or a Blake Snell or a Jordan Montgomery who are 30 years or older. This is a guy in his prime. So if you were going to make that leap and you were finally going to splurge, this is the perfect candidate to do it for. He not only would bring the level of your rotation up, which isn't really difficult to do after seeing these signings, but it's also a big splash as far as media coverage and popularity for the franchise. Imagine the ratings boost that you would get domestically and internationally. I still find it hard to believe that the bigger market teams are going to allow the Cardinals to outbid them. But could the Cardinals shock the world and land him? I'll give them credit. They've done their best to put themselves in a situation, where they have a chance. That's for sure. But we'll see. Now, the Cardinals did make a move yesterday, bringing back a familiar face to the roster when they signed 36-year-old right-hander Lance Lynn to a 1-year deal worth approximately $11 million, according to MLB insider John Heyman. There are also performance incentives in the deal that could bring the total to $14 million, and it includes an option for 2025 that could make the deal worth $25 million overall per Heyman. My initial reaction to the signing was, why so early on a player of Lynn's current level? My understanding of how free agency normally goes is that the big dogs sign first, like Nola, re-signing with Philly. Then there's the trickle-down effect that takes place as the rest of the bigger names set the market, and then everything lines up from there. The Cardinals are doing it the other way. Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, not top-tier pitchers by any means, but signing them right away. Got to get them. It seems odd to me. It's very odd to me. And people were saying to me yesterday on Twitter X and on YouTube, which, by the way, we are going to get a ton of your comments in here in the third segment. But they were saying things like, who cares about the order of when they're signing these guys? They need pitchers. They need an innings eater. We got 2 of them now. And yeah, I agree with that. But why was Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson your priority over any of these other guys that are out there in the market that could fit that number 5 mold of innings eater? Like, they weren't the best pitchers. They just threw a lot of innings. Like that is the selling point of them. That's it. Nothing else that they did was all that great. Okay. Lynn with the strikeouts. But everything else is not great. So we're going to break down the pros and cons of just Lance Lynn. Again, Kyle Gibson story just broke, so we'll have to do that tomorrow. But we're going to do the pros and cons of Lance Lynn, see if maybe we can figure out why Lynn was the guy that the Cardinals felt they needed so much that they scooped him up ahead of everyone else on the market, except Aaron Nola. So we're going to do that next on Locked On Cardinals. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, wide range of betting options. We're talking spreads and player props, over-unders, and more. You've got all of the sports going on, NHL, NBA, college hoops, college football, NFL. Speaking of NFL, Monday Night Football yesterday, MVS, you son of a gun, drops the potential winning touchdown pass from Mahomes, and the Eagles go on to win last night, which means I went 1-2 this week on my bets, my first losing week of the year. But that's part of betting. You know, I've been winning a lot, and it certainly makes games that you're not that interested in more fun to watch. I can tell you that much. And if you don't care who wins in the grand scheme of things, you'll pay attention to those games. So Thanksgiving, you've got my Packers at the Lions, Commanders at the Cowboys, 49ers at the Seahawks. Plenty of games to bet on and enjoy while you're eating your bird. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X when you want. Feedback, always welcome and encouraged. Again, we'll get to plenty of your comments about the Lance Lynn signing. We'll be doing that in segment 3. But when news broke of the Lance Lynn signing yesterday, I posted that I wasn't really a fan of it. I personally believe that there are better pitchers out there that could be your number 5 starter next season. The guy they signed today, Kyle Gibson, I would have probably put ahead of Lance Lynn. I don't need both of them, but that's where they are. I wanted the Cardinals to aim higher this offseason. I really did. Then Lynn, then Gibson. You know, it's frustrating. I thought someone like Seth Lugo or Nick Martinez or Kenta Maeda, guys like that, I thought that was going to be the guy they'd aim for to be their number 5. And then you go up the next tier for your number 2, guy like a Sonny Gray. And then we were holding out that maybe a trade for a number 1 like a Cease or a Glasnow or, you know, even a Shane Bieber. The Cardinals felt different. They felt different. So let's start with the pros of signing one Lance Lynn. Let's give him credit. He's durable. Definitely durable, right? 32 starts last year with the Sox and Dodgers, 21 with Chicago in 2022, 28 with them in 2021. 13 starts in a league-leading 84 innings during the COVID year of 2020, 33 starts in 2019 with Texas, 29 in 2018 with Minnesota and the Yankees. You get the idea. For the most part, the guy is there every 5th day, and that's something that the Cardinals value. It appears that they are done screwing around with guys that might be there on the 5th day. They're over it. In the 6th season since leaving St. Louis, Lynn has made 28 or more starts 4 times. Only 7 players have more seasons with 28 or more starts since 2018. His 77 quality starts since 2018 ranks 16th in Major League Baseball. The strikeout numbers last year, very, very good, right? They were good. 191 Ks in 183 innings, 9.3 Ks per 9. Clearly something the Cardinals were targeting when they signed Lance Lynn. Kyle Gibson does not have those strikeout numbers. But the swing and miss stuff with Lynn, they want more of that. Lynn showed that capability last season. He managed to post a strikeout rate of 23.6. That was 1.5 points above the MLB average for starting pitchers, which was at 22.1. Fueled by one of MLB's highest combined whiff rates, which is 28.5 on four seamers and sinkers, which is up there with the guys that you have heard of that you'd be impressed by. Guys like Freddie Peralta and Spencer Strider, Luis Castillo, Zach Wheeler. Like, that's a good grouping to be around. The Lance Lynn attitude has been described as sandpaper or crusty, as the crew called him on 101 ESPN this morning. He does bring a grit and an attitude that this clubhouse has missed recently. According to Derek Gould at STLtoday.com, during this past season, the Cardinals wondered if they needed what they called a rusty nail presence, like Lynn, who can bring that with his wit, experience, and bluntness. Now, when you talk about his wit, if you've ever seen any of his interviews, specifically the ones that he does with Jim the Cat A's on Bally's, you'd see that he brings a nice sense of humor, dry sense of humor, and a presence with him that people enjoy. But he also knows that when you get between the lines, it's go time. He's not out there to screw around and goof off. He's not out there smiling like an idiot all the time. He's out there doing business. He's out there working. He's got a bulldog mentality, and that can go a long way with shaping the character of this team for next year. You know, we used to love it with guys like Chris Carpenter. John Lackey was another one that used to be like that. And it's nice to have those kind of guys in your clubhouse. After getting shipped to the Dodgers, his numbers were better in LA. He went 7-2, ERA 4.36 in 11 starts, with 7 of those being quality starts, had an ERA plus of 100. So as a fifth starter in the rotation, which is what we presumed he was going to be for the Cardinals, who knows now? Because now you got Gibson, Lynn, Matz, Michaelis. You got 4 guys there that all seem like they should be 3, 4s, and 5s. Maybe not even 3s. And they're all 4 in your rotation now. But you will, as a guy, if you sign Lynn and he was going to be your 5th, you would take that in a heartbeat. Your 5th guy is not going to be some superstar, you know? 2 of his starts were really bad with LA, and they blew his ERA out of whack. He had back-to-back miserable performances against Atlanta, where he gave up 7 runs in 4 1/3, and then he faced Miami, gave up 8 in 4 2/3, and the ERA went outside of those 2 starts. He was pretty darn good with the Dodgers, which gives you hope that maybe that's the real Lance Lynn that the Cardinals will get in 2024. And not the one that we saw in Chicago, who struggled. Now, negatives of Lance Lynn. We're going to run through those next, which includes the home runs. A lot of home runs. We'll do it next on Locked On Cardinals. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube, and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So the Lance Lynn negatives. We went through the positives, and there are some things about Lance Lynn that are good. Like, he's not like garbage. But there are some problems that you see what he did last year, and you're like, well, what about this? 44 home runs. That's a big number. 44 home runs hit off of him last season. Led the league in long balls given up. Next on the list was his teammate, Lucas Giolito, with 41. Another guy that the Cardinals have been linked to. And the way things are going, it seems like that's a guy they'll sign. Why not have the guys that gave up the most home runs and the most hits in the league in your rotation? Why not? Put them all in there. Keep the ball in play. It'll be fun. Will the number of home runs that Lance Lynn gave up go down by pitching in Busch Stadium? Maybe. In Mozeliak's press conference today, which I only caught little pieces of because I was too busy putting this together. But I know he said something like, we hope that his numbers will improve by pitching in Busch Stadium. And then I saw one of the comments was, why not pick a guy who, you know, has good numbers in all the stadiums. Yeah, why not? But he got hammered pretty much everywhere he went last year. It wasn't like it was just in Chicago, a guaranteed rate field, that Lance Lynn had problems. Which, by the way, you say, oh, well, maybe he'll be better in Busch Stadium. Chicago's stadium, guaranteed rate field, 191 home runs were hit there. Busch Stadium had 190 hit this year. So it's not like we're talking about Great American Ballpark or Atlanta, who led the most home runs were hit there. Obviously, their team's really good, but it's not like Chicago was a launching pad and Busch Stadium is this cavernous place where no home runs were hit. 191 to 190 is not a big difference, right? Just one, if my math is correct. Lynn gave up 9 home runs in 9 starts in Chicago, gave up 11 in 8 starts at Dodger Stadium, which Dodger Stadium saw a lot of home runs hit there this year. That was 4th in home runs per ballpark. So that's 20 of his 44, which means 24 of them came elsewhere. Then in his lone postseason game, he gave up 4 more in Arizona. So the Cardinals have now added a guy that gave up the most home runs in the league and paired him with Miles Mikolas, who gave up the most hits in the league, and then went out today and signed Kyle Gibson, who gave up the most hits in the American League. Cool. Now, all of those dingers obviously led to some very fugly numbers. He had a career worst ERA of 5.73. His FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, in case you were wondering, which is the ability to prevent home runs, walks, hit by pitches, was 5.53. That's not good. His walk percentage was up to 8.3, which is the highest he's been at since 2018. The velo down from 94 in 2021 when he had a very good year. 11-6, 2.69 ERA when he's with the Sox. The velo's down to 92 is where he's sitting these days. His Baseball Savant page, which has his percentile rankings for 2023, almost every category is below average. With percentage was in the 69th percentile. That's the only thing that is significantly above average. Some of the other categories, they creep a little bit up there. Everything else is not great. Like it's bad. He'll be 37 in May. Outside of the performance-enhancing drug years, pitchers' numbers don't normally get better at that point in your career. They continue to decrease. Like there are some weirdos out there like Justin Verlander, who just keeps doing really, really well. Scherzer, although we're starting to see the injuries mount up on him. But most people aren't going to get better. 37 and beyond. They're going to get worse. So the question is, was 2023 like the cliff year that Lynn finally went shoo and fell off permanently? I mean, how painful was it to watch Adam Wainwright go through what he just did? Just getting shelled every time he went out there. Are we setting ourselves up for another similar season? Just instead of Wainwright, it's Lance Lynn. Maybe he just doesn't have the stuff anymore. Now, the strikeouts tend to make you think that it's still in there, right? But even with all those strikeouts, he got shelled. The financial side of it, I'm really not all that concerned about because there's no cap in baseball. But for what the Cardinals are paying, aren't there better options out there? Like, was nobody else going to be available for $11 million next year? Kyle Gibson, $12 million now. Like, I just didn't understand what the rush of grabbing him, when I'm talking about Lance Lynn or Kyle Gibson for that matter now, grabbing him right away. What was it about Lance Lynn that they felt they had to have him over the rest of the market and prioritized getting him as soon as possible? Same thing with Kyle Gibson. What is it about Kyle Gibson other than the innings that makes you like, oh, we got to have him? I mean, Kyle Gibson's the guy that the Cardinals hit 4 home runs off of him when he was with the Phillies consecutively in the first inning. I remember that. I tweeted out the video. So let's get some of your reactions to the signing because it was a bit of a mixed bag yesterday. In the poll that I posted up, is Lance Lynn a good signing? You had the options of yes, no, yes if he's just the fifth starter, and no, he's declining. 59.2% said yes if he's just the fifth. 18.1% said just yes in general. 13.3% said no. And 9.4% said no, he's declining. So going off that, most people like the idea of bringing back Lance Lynn. The comments, though, that I got, however, suggest otherwise, because there was a lot more people who were vocal about not liking that signing than there were people who were like, oh, it's not bad. Let's run through a few of them. Montana Dennis. This is horrible, especially as one of their first moves. Donnie Kidwell. This was a bad choice. There are better pitchers out there with a look and a lot better than Lance Lynn. Dylan Rawlings. If it was their fourth or fifth move of the offseason, fine. But their opening move of the season, not optimistic. Dane Parsons. Well, this time Mo did not go for the low-hanging fruit. This was fruit on the ground. Scott, 2726. Is this really happening? I'm having a nightmare. If signings like this continue, we are not showing up. Well, Scott, Kyle Gibson, incoming today. Stephen Wells. Michaelis can breathe a sigh of relief because he probably won't lead the team in home runs allowed next season. Ray Russell. I think I'll buy a ticket to sit in the outfield seats when Lynn pitches. Good chance I'll catch a home run ball that day. Jim Reddington. Disappointed. What does this say about the other pitching holes to fill? Beginning to feel like they didn't learn much from last offseason. Kyle Gibson, again, is who they brought in today. Now, not all of this is negative. Just like the signing isn't purely negative. There's two sides to it. There is some good to Lance Lynn. There's a lot of bad to Lance Lynn at this point in his career, but there are fans who are choosing to see the brighter side of this, with many of them, just like in the poll, saying that if he's the third best guy they sign and is their fifth starter, they don't mind the move. I wonder how these people feel now that the Kyle Gibson news has come down. Like, who do you guys think is actually a worse pitcher or a better pitcher? Who do you think is better, Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn at this point in their careers? Let me know down below. But let's go with what people were saying yesterday as far as positive things about Lance Lynn. Blogger Sniffle, great name, by the way. He says, or she says, I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, I like it. He's the fifth guy, and I like him. So fine, as long as they're still angling for a couple high-end guys. Well, they angled for Kyle Gibson. Jeremy Dale, I'm looking at this as the first piece of a larger puzzle. With Lynn, we now have two guys in the back half of our rotation that you should be able to count on to show up and answer the bell every fifth day and get you deep into a lot of ball games. Now you got three of those guys. Steve Dotson says, I think Lance Lynn might be a stopgap to the offseason in 2024. Could Mo be looking at needing more than this 2023 offseason to fix this team's pitching? And that is a great point to make, especially when you consider that Lance Lynn, 1-year deal, could turn into 2. Kyle Gibson, 1-year deal, could be 2. It makes you think that maybe they're just trying to get through this season and that the next year is the year where they're going to try to make other changes. But I don't know what to believe anymore because I thought they were going to make moves this season since it was so important to not be in last place again. And you're getting Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson so far. Seth B says, if Lance Lynn is a middle to back end starter at best, I still don't really like this signing, but I guess I'll let it slide. I just hope we get better guys for the front, like Sonny Gray and maybe even Yamamoto. Well, don't hold your breath. Nick Elliott, as long as they still sign or trade for a 1 and 2 starters, they also had to fill out the 3 through 5. But I'm concerned about the long balls he gave up last year. I agree there will be better options available for that spot, but as long as they use the money saved on a true 1 and 2, but if they don't, there will be a fan revolt. And I haven't seen what the comments are so far on the Kyle Gibson stuff. I guess I could look up a couple of these. We got a minute or two here. Let's see what they're saying. The Lynn signing and now Gibson just proves how cheap this organization is. I hope Arenado asks for a trade. Bargain bin Mo at it again. Time for this front office to be fired. What is Mo smoking? What a joke. Mo needs to go. This whole offseason will be a bust. This is pathetic. Fire Mo. With this rotation, we will be in last again next year. This is just a couple of them. Like people are pissed. So best case scenario, at this point, you're hoping that they somehow outbid everybody to bring in Yamamoto. Perhaps they somehow talk Sonny Gray into coming to this dumpster fire instead of going to the Atlanta Braves, who were amazing last year. You're hoping for bounce back years from Michaelis and Lynn and I guess Gibson. You need Matz to stay healthy. That's all you need, right? That's all we got to wish for. A lot of wishful thinking. What do they say in Grumpy Old Men? You can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see which one fills up first. I'm assuming, and I still believe there is a trade coming at some point for a number one guy. I continue to catch hell for Tyler Glass now, and I get it because the injuries are a real concern, but the upside is massive. And if you are finding the good in Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, and these are guys that you're like, oh, well, they'll be there. Are they kind of preparing for a Steven Matz breakdown, which why wouldn't you? Or are they going to make a trade for a guy like Glass now who has had some problems staying healthy? And maybe that's why they're getting these guys who are reliable. They may not be great pitchers, but they're reliable to be available. I still want Cease out of the trade possibilities. He's my favorite, but a lot of teams want him. So are the Cardinals going to be able to offer enough? I mean, I fear that Nolan Gorman would have to be included in a deal for Dylan Cease, and I'm just not prepared to sign off on something like that. I don't want to trade Gorman. So Mo has made his first two moves. They're not exciting. We'll see what else he's got for us, but man, kind of a rough day considering I thought yesterday was going to be the rough day. We were going to have better news today. Instead, Kyle Gibson. That's why this Maker's Mark. Something I'm going to pour myself a glass of here in just a moment. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Give us a follow on Twitter, X at @LO_Cardinals and to JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you're interacting with us. I got to hear from you guys because I have a feeling we're going to go down this kind of list again tomorrow. I think we're going to have Josh Jacobs on the show, and maybe he can give us a positive spin on this. I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm as baffled and as kind of upset as you are. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. I feel like we deserve better than what we're getting right now. I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals. Don't drink and drive if you're upset about this stuff like I am.